What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of GG Gaming. I am your host and player one, Andrew, and again, I am doing this solo. Putting this one out a little bit late because of Thanksgiving, Black Friday, work. I had to work Black Friday, so I figured rather than skip a week, I'll try and get this one out. It is now Sunday 10:12 p.m. November 27th, 2016, in case you really didn't know what year it was. What have I been up to this past week? Quite a bit. With the new Pokemon that came out, I've been, before Thanksgiving, I was playing it a lot. Got up to the third island. I forget the name of it. But I got to the third island, and once I got to the third island, I started trading a lot on the GTS, or Global Trade System, if anybody's unfamiliar with that. And I got a hold of a Ditto and a Cast form, and I just started breeding like crazy in the nursery on the second island. And using the constant bred Cast forms, I just started trading online, because Cast form is supposed to be really hard to get a hold of. And thanks to that, I just kind of got addicted to trying to trade for, or try to fill up the Pokedex, and I winded up practically filling up the entire Alolan Dex before even really starting the third island. So you look at my Pokedex, and it's almost 100. It's like in the 80s and 90% complete, and I'm only starting the third island. So I thought that was kind of strange, but I've never actually really traded for all the Pokemon. I've never actually tried to complete the decks before beating the game, and so I was like, you know what, I'm feeling it. Like, I'm having fun trading. There was like something so intriguing or fun or whatever. I guess it's that collector's mentality. About trying to get all the Pokemon, and once I got into it, like before completing the game, I just totally got into it, and I just kept going. And I think the only ones I'm really missing now are the legendaries and Ultra Beasts. I don't know if the Ultra Beasts are considered legendaries. The ones that, so basically anything you can't scan with a QR code, because I think you only get them in the game, or you get them in the game, but like people were not. I wasn't able to get them through trade, or because people were asking for some ridiculous stuff, or like other legendaries in return. And the other thing is, I figured, those I'm gonna save for, as a goal of actually, like, one of the goals of actually beating the game and capturing them myself. The only other things I'm missing are some of the item trade evolutions. Like, I actually just got a Caesar today. Somebody traded Caesar for my level 1 cast form, or one of my level 1 cast forms. What else? I think I need Slowking and Politoed. I'm not quite sure if there's any other item trade evolutions. The other ones that are just trade evolutions, like Alakazam and Gengar, I was able to trade for. Like, I traded for the Haunters and the Kadabras. They're easier because nobody wants to really give up their items to trade for. And the other thing is, people can offer up like a Slowpoke without the item. So it's something. I think that it's something they can work on to make better. I would like there to be the option to, when you search for something to trade for, it would be better, in my opinion, if you also had the option of putting in a specific item that you want that Pokemon to be traded for. Like, for example, if I'm looking to get a Haunter because I want to get, or no, that's a bad example because it'll evolve anyway. If I'm looking to get a Slowking, let's say, I see what a lot of people do online is they'll deposit like Slowpoke with the, what is it called? King's Rock. They'll put, because if you trade a Slowpoke with a King's Rock, it becomes a Slowking. So what people do, I see, is they'll offer up Slowpoke with a King's Rock on it, meaning whoever gets that Slowpoke will get a Slowking. But what they ask for in return is Slowking, because, you know, if they ask for a Slowpoke, the person could just trade a Slowpoke without a King's Rock on it. So it kind of becomes an issue of, well, how am I going to get the Slowking to give you for your Slowpoke in return? It really becomes just out of necessity or interest. It becomes more of a thing of hospitality. Like, I already have Slowking, so why do I need your Slowpoke with a King's Rock? I think that it's something they could work on to improve it is if they, like I said, were able to make it so, let's say I wanted a Slowpoke with a King's Rock, or I wanted a Slowking. I would search for a Slowpoke, but I mean, I would deposit a Pokemon and request for a Slowpoke, but I would have to say the Slowpoke, you know, has to come with the item King's Rock. Like, I think that there's something they can do to improve the way the item evolution Pokemon work, because certain ones, I mean, it's just a little funky. Like I said, why would you trade your already evolved item trade evolution Pokemon, you know, for one so that you can get, like, there's not really a reason unless you're going out of your way to help somebody get those Pokemon. And I think it's just overall a better idea to get it from, like, you know, two people with Slowpokes who each have a King's Rock on it. It's like, yeah, we'll each trade each other. Or like a Poliwhirl with I think it's also King's Rock. I forget to get Politoed, but you know what I'm saying. You know, if you want to get that third evolution, it's more incentive to, and there would be more availability if you took the Pokemon that would evolve into the one with the item, and you request for that item to be on that Pokemon. I think it would work a lot better that way. But aside from that, I actually didn't realize this, but when you scan with the QR codes up to when you scan 10 of them, then you fill up this meter. You get 10 points for each scan, and when you reach 100, you're able to scan the island that you're on for a rare Pokemon, and that Pokemon would be one that's not in the Alolan Dex, so they would show up with no number because they're not in the Dex, that regional Dex. So far I've come across Marill and Axew, so I caught them both, and before I even knew about this, I had gotten a hold of a Horsey that I traded for, and I didn't even realize it wasn't in the Alolan Dex. I just thought that any Pokemon available would be in the Dex, or only the Pokemon in the Dexes would be available. Okay, I actually just stepped away for a second. My dog was jumping on the door to go out, and when I went to go let her back in, she was just staring at me on the porch. She had something in her mouth. Thought it was a rock, and then I started to think it was a frozen turd. And then I tried to get her to come in, coax her with a treat, or a cracker in this case, and what it ended up being was, or what I'm pretty sure it was this morning I gave her a piece of my bagel, and she must have left it in the grass somewhere because she came back in with it. But anyway, that's said and done. I was talking about Pokemon. I'm not exactly sure. I was talking about the whole trading thing. But yeah, I'm definitely loving the game so far. Definitely the efficient. It's a lot more efficient. A lot of things have been fixed up to be, you know, quicker, easier, and I actually really like that. As long as you've encountered a Pokemon, at least one, As long as they've been registered in your Pokedex as having been seen, then whenever you encounter that Pokemon, it'll show you how effective your moves will be against it. So if the first time you encounter a Pokemon, you won't know if your techniques are effective or not until the second time you run into them. What the fuck? I'm getting these freaking pop-ups. I'm using an iMac and I'm getting pop-ups. What the hell, man? So I was unsure of how it worked in double battles, but what it seems to be is it seems to show you how effective, or I think it'll go by, I think the priority is super effective, then effective, and no effect. And what I mean by priority is if let's say one of the two that you're fighting, let's say you're fighting two Pokemon, and a move that, let's say your first move, for example, will be super effective on one of them and no effect on the other one. It'll say super effective, and then when you choose your target, it'll break it down into super effective or no effective. So it goes to let you know, first of all, the most damage you can do, like in terms of, hey, this move is going to be super effective to at least one of these two Pokemon, or three, or whatever. That's what it seems to be, from my understanding. It's definitely a lot of fun. I do like and dislike the system where a wild Pokemon can call for help. It makes the battles seem more interesting, but it makes the catching more annoying. Because you can only catch a Pokemon if they're the only one on the screen. So if there's two Pokemon, you can't throw a Pokeball, because it'll say that your character can't target which one to throw the ball at, which is kind of retarded, but whatever. So you have to narrow it down so there's one left. The problem is, when there's one left, they can call for help again. So catching Pokemon has never been harder. So that's annoying. In terms of battling, it's interesting because you never know if another one's gonna pop in and support the Pokemon that you're fighting. But if you're just catching, like if you're in it to catch the Pokemon, it's way more annoying. But the the whole trials instead of gyms, I do like it a lot. Definitely an interesting mix-up. And instead of fighting a gym leader, you would fight a totem Pokemon, which is basically a Pokemon who has a lot more, or is like increased stats, it seems. They have some kind of aura, like a totem aura, and they're bigger. And the battles are actually difficult. Is because they're just stronger, and then they'll call for help, and you don't have a second Pokemon with you, so it's basically 1 against 2, and among those two is a really strong Pokemon. So I only really had a lot of trouble with one of them because I'm playing Moon. I don't know if it's different in Sun, but in one of the trials, I fought against Lurantis, or Totem Lurantis, and it kept using Synthesis, so it kept healing. And that was really the most trouble I had. That was the only time in the game I had actually lost so far. And any other time I had any other time in the game where I was having difficulty, I was able to overcome it. But in this particular trial, like this part of the game, I actually lost once. And the second time I was going to lose, but I actually ended up beating it. I think what initially I was aiming to do was trying to take out the help. And because I figured if it keeps using Synthesis, maybe I should go for the help first so that I can really lock down on the totem Pokemon. And then Lurantis just kept summoning more help every time. So the second time I just went after Lurantis, and I think what I was using Raichu, or more specifically a Lowland Raichu, but I would use Thunder Wave to paralyze it. Or if it had hit me, its ability Static would, or it doesn't have, I think maybe at the time it was a Pikachu, because Pikachu had static. Unless I'm thinking about earlier on in general, but if it wasn't static, it was Thunder Wave and vice versa. So I would paralyze Lurantis, and what's the other? There was another move I have on Raichu that it got as a Pichu. I think it's called Sweet Kiss, where it confuses. So I would try and go for a paralysis confusion lockdown, which usually works, but, you know, 2-on-1, it's still difficult. And Lurantis just was still able to keep attacking despite being paralyzed. And I don't know if that's an advantage it has from being a totem Pokemon, or if I was just getting really unlucky. Because it was still going first despite being paralyzed, so it must have had really high speed stat that it just kept going first before Raichu. And Raichu's pretty fast to begin with. So I don't know the specifics of totem Pokemon stats, but I guess that Lurantis was just really fast. Other than that, I've run into the Team Skull boss a couple of times already, beat him a couple of times, and every time you beat him, he flips out and yells at himself, which is kind of funny. I don't know his story, but he seems to like yell at himself, and I'm wondering if there's something like more to it than just comedy, like if there's something in his story, like he's messed up in the head or something, but he just kind of like, whenever you beat him, he just kind of flips out on himself. He's like, Guzma, why'd you do that? Because his name is Guzma. He's like, Guzma. He's like, damn it. And he just flips out, and he's like, I'm going to crush you one of these days. And he like walks out, which I thought was funny because the second time I was actually in his hideout, and he walked out of his hideout. I'm like, shouldn't you be kicking me out of your hideout? I'm in your room. And then I guess there was an Easter egg where I sat on his throne, and one of the Team Skull grunts like came in to like call for the boss, and he was like, wait, you're not the boss. And he just like turns around and he's like, and he walks out. So it's kind of funny, but definitely liking the game. My team right now, which I think I'm going to use to, you know, like as my permanent team for the game, is I started off with Poplio. So right now I have Primarna. I have Lycanroc, the Midnight form. Serena. What's the other three? What can I think of the other three? Marowak, Raichu, both Alolan forms, obviously. And he hasn't fully evolved yet, but it was Changmo, which I got from a trade. And I think this one in particular I bred so that I can just get it from level 1 and be it mine instead of somebody else's. Even though, yes, I know that they evolve or level up faster when they're someone else's, but there was something about just having my own that I wanted. I know, OCD, but I think the second form is called Hakamoo, and that's the one I have right now, and it is currently level 35, unless it just leveled up again to 36, but I think last checked it was 35. And I don't remember when Hakamoo evolves into, I think it's Komo-o? I think that's what it is. I don't know what level it evolves. I might be mixing it up with a different Pokemon altogether when I'm thinking 45. I might be thinking of Shelgonta Salamence, or one of the other pseudo-legendary dragons. I might be thinking Sliggoo to Goodra, but for some reason, because 45 from stage 1 to stage 2, and then 55 from stage 2 to stage 3 sticks out in my head, but Jangmo evolved into Hakamoo earlier than 45, so I must be thinking of something else. So I'm not quite sure when Hakamoo evolves into Komo, but I think I have a nice blend of different types. I never really dig using normal types, and there's nothing against normal types, but I don't know, I just never really dig in it. I'm wondering if I ever really used any normal types before, like on my final team. I'm sure I might have. I can't recall. like any really sticking out. Maybe I might have used Pidgeot once before, but that's flying, unless it's normal flying. But it's at least flying, so it's not pure normal. Yeah, I can't really recall ever using a pure normal. I've used a pure normal in competitive battling, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have used this one, but Kangaskhan for the Mega Kangaskhan because of the double attacking. And I heard that it got nerfed, but I don't know how or like what the nerf was. I guess I'll find out soon enough, but I heard that Mega Kangaskhan got nerfed. So I guess I'll see what that's all about. Aside from Pokemon, which, by the way, I wanted to say, I've been trying to say Pokemon how it's supposed to say instead of Pokemon, because a lot of people just say Pokemon, where they don't put emphasis on the A. And I know that's really, like, stupid of me to, like, get annoyed at, but I notice a lot of people say Pokemon, and I'm guilty of it too. And I'm just like, it's Pokemon. Why do I keep saying Pokemon? So I'm trying to say Pokemon, how it's supposed to be. But I always slip into saying Pokemon because it's just like a quicker, lazier way of saying it. With Pokemon aside, I played a little bit more, not too much, but I played a little bit more of Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key. And I was looking around. Well, first of all, they had a Black Friday deal going on that was for $5, which is normally $15, but for $5 you could get 3,000 jewels and unlock some. I don't know if you would consider them secret missions, but some special missions or quests to get certain things. You could replay them as much as you want, and there was a few of them where you can get certain evolution medals, which is to, strengthen your medals. And I started, there's actually, okay, so I was looking around at what medals are actually available in the game, and there's some of them I really like, or I want to use, and I believe they're all random to get. One of them I really want to get is the Illustrated Aqua, and somebody, I asked in the group chat thing, like if anyone had it, and so somebody made it available as their favorite, and when you pick a favorite, then it makes it available for other people to use, because you can choose one. You choose your medals, and then you choose one from someone else. So now I like to choose the Illustrated Aqua one, which is really cool. I really wish you could trade medals with people. That would be such an awesome thing to add into this game, because I really would love to be able to trade for medals. And I'm sure people have a lot of good medals that they're not using, that they would probably trade for ones that they want or would use that other people have. So that's an idea. I would love to see it trading somehow implemented into the game. Right now I'm level 209. Not quite sure. I don't know if there's a max, honestly. But they recently added in something called Nova attacks, where if you guilt a medal, which is basically you strengthen your medals by putting other medals onto them to raise their experience to kind of level them up. And if you use the same medal, if you level up, or if you attach a medal to another medal, it gives experience points. But if you choose the same exact one, like if you put one on the same one, it if it has an open slot next to it, it'll light up, and like it increases a certain it increases that special. And when you max it out, then it's called guilting, and it adds on a new bar that's percentage. And so when you guilt something, it raises the percentage. So I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I think it just does a bonus of that much more damage. And the percentage, every time you, like, quote unquote guilt a medal to a medal, you kind of like have this, the numbers random. It kind of like a jackpot, or like a slot machine. And when you press the button, it chooses a random number, but it always chooses from between what you have and its highest amount, so you'll never go below. But a couple of times I didn't. A couple of times I did that. I didn't increase at all. I went from 19 to 19 to 19, and I was like, "Fuck this shit." So I was just like, "I'm not doing this shit again." And then they actually have medals to win called Magic Mirror, which increases that percentage by 1. And so I maxed out Riku from Final Fantasy X, or in Kingdom Hearts terms, from the Gull Wings. I maxed out that Riku, so her highest percentage is 25. And you can also increase attack, defense, and cost, which is something you decrease. And the cost, it goes for you have a certain cost number. You have a certain number for each Keyblade, and every medal has a certain cost. So as long as you don't go over the numbers, you can put in you could put in those medals. So like let's say I have a bunch of the most highly evolved medals. I can only be limited to the costs, and the strongest ones go up to 45, and it's a huge jump. It's from like 16 to 45, and the most you can decrease a medal when it's 45 or 46 maybe is by 10. So right now I think I'm using my main Keyblade is the Starlight Keyblade, and I believe it is like 141 is the cost right now that I have on it. And so I actually have 3 of the most highly evolved medals. With at least 2 of them, I've lowered the cost by 10. I have Minnie as the first one because she heals you, so that has gotten me through a lot of crap. She does the most healing, because it goes. There are certain medals, like some will say like because when you do the special, it's like slightly heals, and then there's another one that's like moderately heals, and I think Minnie is. Well, there's 3 of them. I don't know what the third word is. Moderately might be the highest one. So there's like small, medium, large, and Minnie supposedly heals the most. So I got a hold of Minnie, and I'm like, I think I'm going to use this. So I'm using her. I'm using there's 3 different types. There's magic power, and speed medals, and they're red, blue, and green. So in my head, I just think of the Pokemon elements like fire, water, and grass, even though that's not what it is, but that's kind of how I think of it. It's easier for me to think of, at least. So Minnie is blue. Her special heals, but she only targets one enemy. So if you're fighting a bunch of enemies, she'll only hit one of them. Then the second one I have is which one is it? I believe this. Yeah, the second one is Marluxia. A or B. It's because there's multiples of certain medals, but the Marluxia one I have, he the special attacks like going forward, so it's like a swipe that hits. I believe it hits everyone. Does it hit everyone? No, it might only hit one person. It might also be another specific one-hit target. But I use Marluxia because when I got it, it came with an ability. Like each medal, you can also throw an ability onto. And he came with the ability No Cost, and No Cost will, as you use the medal, the ability levels up to its max. And I think I maxed it out. I'm not quite sure, but at the max for No Cost, it's like in the high 40%. So almost half the time you use that special, it won't use any of your special gauge. Like if the special gauge has I don't want to keep saying cost, but pretty much like it has a cost. Like each medal to use a special has a cost. And that Marluxia medal is 3, and I have a max of 15. So if I want to use that special, if the no cost doesn't work, then I wind up using 3 bars or meters or whatever of the special gauge to pull off that special. Otherwise, almost half the time, no cost will kick in, and then I won't spend anything on like this strong attack. Then the third one, oh, and Marluxia's green, so I have a blue and a green one. And then the third medal on my Keyblade is I believe it's Kingdom Hearts Riku, like from the first game. And so he throws his Keyblade, or well, your character with his special, your character throws the Keyblade forward, and it spins for like a chunk of multiple hits, and it hits multiple enemies, and then it comes back almost like a boomerang, but it just goes straight forward and back. And that one is a gold medal. That one's like fully leveled up. I believe that one I have fully leveled up. The most you can increase its attack and defense are by 1,000, and the most you can decrease its cost is by 10. And I believe it has an effect on it that is attack up 2. I think there's only 1 and 2. For all I know, there could be a third, but I'm not sure. There you can only have 5 medals. So that's the third, and that one's red. The fourth one is Riku, the girl Riku from the Gull Wings. She does 2 or 3 hits to everyone, and she's also gold, maxed out, guilted. Riku's not guilted all the way. Actually, I don't think he's guilted at all. Like I got a hold of a second Kingdom Hearts Riku and put him on it, so the meter went up by 1 dot, but it didn't reach up enough to hit the percentage bar. But the not Kingdom Hearts, the Final Fantasy Riku, her guilt is maxed out to 25%. However, I don't know if I leveled up her attack and defense all the way, but I believe I decreased her cost to the max of 10. She's also one of my strongest. She's green. And then last I have King Mickey. I don't know, because there's probably a ton of Mickey medals, but it's a blue one, it's gold, and it does a lot of damage. So, but does it do to I think it hits multiple targets. So basically the first two, Minnie and Marluxia, hit 1 target, and the rest of the 3 hit multiple targets. So I would take those 5 into battle with that Keyblade, plus a 6th, which I would choose randomly from the list of my party's favorites. So as long as you're in a party, you can choose one of your party members' favorite medals to bring in with you, which helps a lot. But there's a ton of medals that people have that I'm just like, I really want this medal. Aqua being illustrated. I have like HD Aqua from the upcoming games, but the illustrated Aqua looks really cool. Aqua's one of my favorite Kingdom Hearts characters because she's just got a really cool design. I think she's a really strong character, like in development wise, like a strong character. And honestly, she's one of my waifus. She's a really cool character. But that's really Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key. That's really the battle system, like in a nutshell. I shouldn't say it's a battle system in a nutshell. That's my equipment in a nutshell. Minnie, I think, has a paralysis effect. Riku has a poison effect. What was the last one I said? Mickey has, I think, a defense up. I don't know if Riku has poison. I think that's right. Yeah, that sounds about right. Whatever. I've rambled on about Kingdom Hearts Unchained Keys quite a bit. I didn't finish the story, but I actually only found this out because I was listening to some other people or watching some videos. But apparently they showed more information about Kingdom Hearts Kingdom Hearts 2.8 collection coming up, the final, I keep mixing up the names. The Unchained, the Kingdom Hearts Key back cover, which is the short movie that's going to be involved as one of the 3, well, it's not a game, but one of the 3 games in the mix for in that game. They showed high quality renders of the foretellers, and something really interesting was one of the foretellers, Master Gula. he's in the same exact pose that Sora is in Kingdom Hearts 3. So people are wondering what kind of connection they might have, because apparently Nomura, it was Nomura? God, I don't know why I'm mixing up names if it's not Nomura. But, the guy who makes Kingdom Hearts. So sorry if it's not Nomura, but Nomura is the name that came out in mind. But apparently he's stated that there are no, God, what's the word I'm looking for? No, not similarities. There's no, God, what's the word I'm looking for? When like something's very, God, I'm blanking on the word, but basically nothing is a coincidence. That's where I'm looking for. There's like no coincidences. Everything's planned out. Oh, 1 second. My dog is crying. 1 second. And I'm back. And I think she had a turd. I don't know what she had, but it looked like she was eating a turd. So yeah. Pretty excited for that new Kingdom Hearts game coming out. The Master Gula was in the same pose as Sora from the new Kingdom Hearts 3. They're like in the same exact pose, and since Nomura has stated that nothing is a coincidence, a lot of people are thinking there's obviously some kind of connection. They seem to have the same body type. You'd think, just when you thought we had enough of character A is actually character B, who is actually character C, Kingdom Hearts, looks like Nomura's throwing us another is character D here. Nobody knows, but and more I'm wondering if the 5 or 6 rather, but if the foretellers are, they are reincarnated into the characters we have now. Really thinking that now I don't remember off the top of my head all their names, but the snake one, she reminds me of Aqua. Obviously Gula reminds me of Sora, or he could also be Ventus. Sora and Ventus have a connection. For anyone kind of unfamiliar, but then again, I don't know why you would care, but this is my podcast, so go fuck yourself. Sora, basically what happened was Ventus had his heart split into two, or like himself was split into two. Basically, the darkness was taken out of his heart in an experiment by Master Xehanort in the past. And the darkness taken out of his heart became a character known as Vanitas, and Ventus himself, like, he didn't have any darkness in him. He was pure light, but he was too weak. So his heart winded up reaching out and connected with Sora. Like, it reached out to like another world. Like, he was kind of in this state of just, I guess, dying, and his heart reached out to Sora while Sora was like a little kid, and basically Sora winded up taking Ventus's like broken heart into his own heart, like basically as a way, to keep him alive. And so Ventus, that's how Ventus came, like, was able to stay alive. So that's how Ventus and Sora got this connection. Down the line, when Sora becomes a Heartless in Kingdom Hearts 1, and Kairi as a Princess of Light kind of turns him back to normal. When you become a Heartless, your body and soul separates from your heart, and the heart is the Heartless. So when he kind of turned, when Kairi turned him back to normal, he was still technically just a heart. He wasn't a complete being, which in Kingdom Hearts terms is referred to as a somebody. He wasn't a somebody. He was just a heart. But he kept his complete, like, his look.
And then that's how his nobody was born, which was the body and soul, which took on the appearance of Ventus because Ventus had this connection with Sora. And that's who Roxas was. Roxas was Sora's nobody. So that's why you basically have these three characters who look almost identical. Oh, I should add in a fourth because Ventus's heart made a connection to Sora, by default Vanitas had a connection to Sora as well. And that's why towards the end of the game Vanitas takes on the appearance of Sora. So you got to like, it's always like these hearts being connected, but that's why, you know, people are thinking that Master Gula could have been reincarnated to Sora, but Sora seems to be, or at least turned into, a character who is more like a random not outcast, like outside this circle of chosen ones who kind of was brought in and became the hero, like almost like the underdog, because you find out that the Keyblade didn't choose him, it chose Riku, but then like the Keyblade chose him as almost like a messenger to bring the Keyblade back to Riku. So like Sora was kind of just involved in a number of interactions, and that's how he got these powers. He was really kind of just like an outsider in all of this, yet he became the main character. So that's something that's really charming and unique. Like you usually have these main characters who are chosen for something, but in Sora's case, he's very much a character who's really not chosen, and all his friends are chosen ones, and in a sense, he's kind of like the chosen unchosen. I made that up, but that sounds like something that Kingdom Hearts would actually call him, like Sora is the chosen unchosen. But he actually makes this quote. He says this quote in the latest game chronologically, being Dream Drop Distance, where he says that I forget the specific quote, like the exact words, but he basically says, you know, like he knows the Keyblade didn't choose him, and he's perfectly fine with that because of his situation, he's made a lot of friends, and his friends are his power, and that's like a really, like, I'm sure there are other characters out there who are just like that, but there's something very resonating about the fact that Sora knows he's not that he's not special because of the circumstances that like he's now somebody special, but like he knows that he wasn't like the chosen hero. Like he knows that he wasn't chosen by the Keyblade. Like he knows that in his circumstance everyone else was like chosen, or like everyone else is tied or bound by certain fates. And he was brought into his adventures because of his ties to these people who were more important than him. And then that's how he became important. So the fact that he acknowledges that and is accepting of it, and he doesn't have, at least we don't know, he doesn't have any ill will towards that, is very resonating of a character. Like it's very, very respectable of a main character, I feel like. And I think that lends to his character of why he's such a strongly developed character, aside from the fact that you play as him in so many games. So of course the story would have to develop him as a character. But going back to what I was saying about Master Gula, it's possible that, I don't want to say red herring because Ventus and Sora are connected, but Master Gula's pose being identical to Sora's could mean that he has a connection with Ventus. But I guess in a sense, you know, I guess anyone connected to Ventus would by default be connected to Sora and vice versa, because like their hearts are connected, or at least were. I think they still are. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, that they share the same pose, and they showed some more, you know, renders of the other foretellers. There's 6 of them, one of them being a traitor, and then the master. I think he's called the Master of Masters, but he's basically the master of the 6 foretellers. And I don't I don't quite I don't. I guess like I'll understand it better when I watch back cover in the game that comes out in January, I think, because I think it got delayed or postponed from December to January. But there's 5 foretellers. There's a 6th who left, but he leaves because he follows the Master of Masters, who disappears. And I'm not sure if because there's supposed to be a traitor among them, and I'm not quite sure if they're alluding to the 6th one who followed the Master as being an exception to that, and the fact that the remaining 5, one of those remaining 5 is a traitor, or if out of the 6 of them, including the one who disappeared, is a traitor, meaning that maybe that 6th one who disappeared along with the Master of Masters, maybe he's a traitor. So it's really like, at least my understanding of it is kind of confusing. Maybe it's not as confusing as I'm thinking it is, because maybe that has been answered. But in terms of what I'm thinking right now, that's what seems to be the case. And the case meaning that I don't know. So, yeah, I went on quite a bit about Pokemon and Kingdom Hearts today, as what I seem to usually do. I really wanted to talk more about the Nintendo Switch. I wanted to talk about games that are in development, and by that I mean like rumored to be. What I would really like to do is discuss that with somebody else, so we kind of go back and forth to what we're looking forward to on the Switch. If I don't get that opportunity, I could always talk about it next week, or I might just keep talking about this whatever I've been playing. I'm like at the 40, almost at the 47-minute mark. I like to keep about an hour. I think that I mean, I could talk a bit more about games, but I actually do have a fan question today, or submission, or whatever you want to call it, that I wanted to get around to, and I wanted to leave myself enough time to discuss it. So I guess I could jump right into that. This question comes from a friend of mine, Heidi Tabbing, who is also, as you might know her, a voice actor, or voice actress, who has played in some games and things online. I don't have offhand exactly what those are, so Heidi, forgive me for not knowing them offhand. But she asks me what inspires my villains, and what she's referring to is my comic series, or anything that I'm writing in particular. But I believe she's specifically referring to my comic series, Spirit Legends. And what inspires my villains, I don't want to say it in like a copying sense, but I find myself very much inspired by villains from other media. I like to think of a character that really strikes me as somebody who I can hate, and try to figure out how I can fit that type of character in this world that I'm creating. So as of right now, since I'm only on issue 3, I mean, in my head, I pretty much have a practically complete series, but from what's actually down in paper right now, I have, there's a small group of villains who 3 have been shown, but one of them has made most of an appearance, and his name is Gold. There's a group of these cyborgs, who, without giving away too much of the surprises, he's this cyborg being who, he's like this horned creature. You're not supposed to really know his origins just yet, but him and his group, their names are puns on metals. So he's the leader of the group, and his name's a pun on gold. It's spelled like I believe I spelled it Ghold, but he is, the inspiration behind him is more so just like the arrogant leader type, or at least that's what he is. But inspiration wise, I can't think of any specific characters offhand, but he is very much inspired by the arrogant leader type, who's very much confident, cocky in his abilities, but a little bit of I don't want to say intelligence, that makes him sound stupid. A little bit of cunning and planning and strategy, where one of the other characters of his group has that's his focus, the strategy. But he in the first issue, he appears in this restaurant where the main character is. He kind of just talks about how he's gonna like spread evil, blah blah blah. But what you find out in the next issue, and in the I think it was clarified a bit more in, well, it's not out yet, it's being edited, but the podcast, the Spirit Legends podcast, episode 4, which 3 is wrapping up. I just got to do some quick editing with that. But in episode 4, him and two of his quote-unquote henchmen, in his group, Silver and Nickel, they're discussing the events that transpired in issues 1 and 2. And I guess in 3 too, also, as well. But he kind of reveals that, and this was also revealed a bit earlier, or gets revealed in issue, I forgot where I said it. Offhand, I forgot where I said it. But basically, you find out that he didn't just appear to just be like, aha, I'm the bad guy, blah, blah, blah. Where it is in the reader's point of view at that point in time, you're supposed to think like, who is this like random horned robot monster guy who just showed up and claims to be evil, or wants to spread malevolence. But you wind up finding, I think by the end of issue 2, and I kind of try to hint at it, but also kind of say it without outright saying it, that he actually had a reason for showing up at the restaurant, and that's the fact that his group was trying to do an experiment, and they were trying to bait these two vigilantes away from said experiment. So he kind of just showed up at this random place to like be like, I'm evil, blah blah blah, and get like try to bait those two vigilantes who are Cyborg X and Shinobi away from where they're doing experiments. So when they wind up showing up at the end of said issue, he's kind of just like, all right, I succeeded in what I was trying to do. I kind of went on a tangent there I kind of went off on not talking about what inspires me, but I was just kind of talking about the character in general. But I tend to really enjoy, and I know a lot of people do, enjoy villain characters and how they're written. And I think part of that reason is because villains give a chance, or villains basically do what a lot of people's primal instincts are to do in certain situations, where they wouldn't act on them because of morals, but villains can be relatable because they feed into that primal instinct of people. Like, for example, if somebody's really annoying you, deep down inside, you kind of just say to yourself, I just want to fucking punch this guy in the face. He's so fucking annoying. But you're not going to. 1, you don't want to get in trouble. 2, hopefully, this is also a reason that, like, morally, like, well, he probably doesn't realize he's being annoying. I'm not going to punch him in the face. It would probably really hurt. It's I don't really want to do that. But your primal instinct, like your animal instinct, part of you wants to do is like, man, I just want to fucking punch this person. And villains feed, like a well-written villain will feed into that. And you find yourself connected to said villain because you're like, man, I understand where he's coming from. I really, I understand because I want to beat the shit out of that guy. And a really well-written villain will kind of, I don't know if this makes sense to say parasitically, feed into that. They'll feed off of that energy of you as a reader. And you're like, wow, I really like this villain because I hate him. And I think that, I might just be repeating myself here, but I really think that a well-written villain will feed into what you, as a person, as a hopefully like a moral person. And yeah, I suppose a real life villain too. But like it feeds into those choices that you partly want to make, whether or not you truly want to make those choices. Like a part of you might want to, even just a fraction. And so you kind of get to see, okay, what are the consequences of acting upon those instincts, and what are the consequences of said villain doing those actions that part of me instinctually wanted to do. And that part of what I wanted to do is now involved in this story scenario. And there's a character in here who I can now by default subconsciously connect with. And I suppose a well-written hero would do the same thing, except feed off of your justice. But I think the thing about your justice, your idea of justice, your idea of morals, but I think that fiction, or just in general stories, have always seemed to got to the point of villain does something bad, hero has trouble and overcomes villain. And it's like we've gotten into this repetitive style of storytelling where the hero always wins, for the most part. Not always, but for the most part. And it's really become a matter of, if you're going with that quote-unquote cliche, it's become more about the approach. Like, let's say my destination is from A to B, but what really makes this stick out is the journey itself. And that's why a lot of people like certain stories over others, because aside from it's easy to say because it's well written, but why is it well written? What makes certain characters stick out more? Why can you connect with certain characters more? And I've been working on my story for years and years, at least in my head. I went through a couple of revisions, and I finally settled on one that I like. And so I'm like on the third. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the fourth issue. Oh, God. I'm like halfway in terms of what's been released. Like halfway through the fourth issue has been released. And it's taken a few years to actually be put online, but the fact that it's taking so long, I mean, not necessarily the reason why, but as a consequence of it taking so long, I'm able to constantly go back and kind of rework, okay, how do I want to approach this? Like, how do I want this character to approach? And I know the question was inspiring villains, but even for the heroes, I kind of think, okay, what would be the most interesting way for said hero to react versus what would be the most sensical, if that's even a word, logical, most logical way for a character to react. And the same can be said for a villain. Like, what is the most logical yet also most interesting way for said villain to act? When a villain acts almost unpredictably, it could be more interesting, because you're like, well, why did he do that? Whereas if a villain acts a bit more predictably, it could also be interesting in the sense where it feeds into your not necessarily ego, but you're kind of like, aha, I knew that was going to happen, and you're kind of proud that you saw that. However, it can also be a downfall because you're like, oh, this is not interesting. I've seen this coming. But yeah, that's kind of, some things I think about when I'm writing characters. And unfortunately, I'm unable to really pump out pages because of budget constraints. Because honestly, I really don't have a budget. And I'm paying a couple of people who can't work for free, or like a colorist or whatnot. And for those people who are lending their assistance, I give infinite thanks to, and I want to pay them as soon as I can. But I did have, on my Patreon, I did have somebody donating money, and that actually was really helping. And then they didn't stop being a patron. They their account, they're like something happened with their card, and so like they're still listed as a patron, and I know that because they reached out to me, but they like technically the site says like I have a patron under under that tier, but like they reached out to me and told me like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fix that, and they never did. So I don't know what the thing is, but that actually did wind up slowing it down. But because right now I don't have any money going towards the project, and it's coming out of my pocket, and the whole project's getting slowed down. So in order to keep busy, I'm still working on it, but I'm also working on like the comic for the game that I was saying that the holidays, the Thanksgiving week kind of slowed that down too. That was kind of on a standstill. Kevin Connor, who's the creator of the game Baby Eater, which I have no idea if it's finished yet. It looks like it's... I want to say it looks like it's getting close to getting finished, but he created... I don't know if it's finalized or not, but it looks like he created box art. He made a box art, and he took some of the artwork I did for the comic, and it's interesting because the art is not finished. It's only been color flatted. And by that I mean like you just put down the solid colors before you're doing all the shading and stuff. You can use the lasso tool or the paint bucket tool or whatever to drop in solid colors. And he basically took that. He actually took the incomplete version of the color flatted and put that in. I was like, this isn't even finished. Why are you using this artwork? And he was explaining to me that a lot of old video games used unfinished artwork. And I'm like, really? I guess I didn't even know, but it's got that I wound up showing a friend of mine, and he's like, yeah, this looks like the cover of a really old game. I'm like, huh, I guess so. But yeah, it's pretty cool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if that turns into anything, because I know there are talks. He has some streamers or Twitch streamers or YouTubers, blah blah blah. He has some people interested in playing it live, and hopefully that kind of gets people involved. Hopefully people get excited about it. We're also looking, or I say we, but I think he is looking to also get it on maybe mobile platforms, maybe the eShop. I don't know exactly the specifics of that, but I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for today. Hit about an hour. Talked about Pokemon and Kingdom Hearts, and I answered a fan question that I got, which was awesome. And talked a little bit about... I talked a lot about my comic that I kind of branched off from the fan question. So I hope I answered your question, Heidi, and if I didn't, I'm sorry. You can just be like, you idiot, you didn't answer my question. But yeah, if you want to read what I did do, cough cough, please do, of Spirit Legends, you can go to I got an actual website that is still like being like worked on right now. So in the meantime, you can go to drewmaru.deviantart.com. That's DREWMARU.deviantart.com. And on the left side are the folders / subfolders. So like I have a folder for issue 1, a folder for issue 2, blah blah blah. And in there I have each page organized, and on each artwork there's a link to the next page, the previous page, blah blah blah. My YouTube username is Diamond Death, I believe. DIAMONDDEATH. Tumblr is drewmaru_comics. Or it's drewmaru. I get my Tumblrs and Twitters mixed up. Twitter is drewmaru_comics. Instagram is drewmaru_comics. Am I missing something? I don't know. I might be. But Facebook, you can check it out at facebook.com/Spirit Legends. GG Gaming itself is let me check. I think that I'm not able to. I wasn't able to change the name of it. It's like facebook.com/gg/gaming/ a whole string of numbers, but you know, you can just find that on Facebook doing a quick search. And there's somebody else named GG Gaming. I don't know what the fuck that was, but yeah, you can tweet to, if you want to ask a question, you can tweet to Drumaru_comics. You can comment on the YouTube video. You can comment on the file on SoundCloud. The way SoundCloud is working, since I'm not paying for a pro membership, I basically only put the most recent podcasts. So it's going to be like the latest 1 or 2 podcasts that are going to be up there. And the same with the Spirit Legends podcasts that act as audio dramas. They're going to be up there as well, the most recent ones. I'm going to have links in those descriptions to go to the YouTube playlists so that you can get the full list of them. So basically, SoundCloud will act as a updated most recent podcasts only. The YouTube account that the SoundCloud will have the link to in the descriptions of said files, blah blah blah, whatever you want to call them on SoundCloud, will link you back to the respective YouTube playlists. And that's it. Hopefully next week I will have somebody. A couple of people were interested. It really just depends on their schedules. If I don't have anybody, then I'll just do another solo podcast again. Maybe I'll talk a little bit less about what I've been doing and a little bit more about what I'm looking forward to. I try to have only a really slight, like, basic structure, and I say that only because I like to kind of have a free. I like it to flow like a conversation and less like a, okay, you know, we got to do this now. We got to talk about this now. Maybe when I get a second person and we have a lot to talk about, then I might have to stick more into a structure. Like, okay, we're running out of time. But when it's just me, I kind of just like ramble. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Again, tweet to blah 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 I said it before, and comment on blah 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 I said it before, or blah 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 whatever I said before. So yeah, that's gonna be it. And as always, good gaming and good night.